want to go into the Army. They don't want to go into the Navy because you don't care for them. It's happening all over our country. My grandpa taught me never to judge the value of a veteran's service. And I hope, Mr. Secretary, you learn to do the same in your capacity, and you can find it in your heart to make that part of your process. May God continue to watch over our troops, our veterans, and our military families. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair.
On Capitol Hill, a single question cut through hours of procedural debate and budget numbers, forcing a moment of reckoning about history, service, and who America chooses to honor. During a tense House Armed Services Committee hearing, Illinois Congressman Eric Sorensen confronted Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth with a question that was simple on its face, but heavy with decades of unresolved meaning. Is Harvey Milk a veteran who deserves his country's thanks?
From Illinois, Mr. Sorensen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Secretary, to the General for joining us today. Mr. Secretary, I'm hopeful that we can come to an agreement that we need both sides of the chambers working together for the betterment of the military. Do you believe that bipartisanship is essential to the mission of our armed forces, yes or no?
I think bipartisanship can be a wonderful thing.
Great. Because I didn't come to Congress with political baggage. I was called here because, I believe, and my constituents believe, that we need impartial, bipartisan people to find solutions to complex problems. But today, this nation is being pushed and pulled in so many different directions. I had a constituent this weekend that said, Eric, I don't even know what to believe anymore. Facts don't matter. Conspiracy theories run rampant like brush fires without anyone to quell them. So I'm hoping you can shoot straight from the hip with me. We're almost done. Do you have a targeted number of reductions in civilian personnel in our armed forces?
We have very diligently tried to identify the places where we might need to make changes, but for the most part, it's been a DRP process, a volunteer process of civilians to try to reduce the number for cost savings.
Is there an analysis that supports how you're coming up with these decisions?
We looked at about 8 to 10%, Congressman, but ultimately, everyone here acknowledges that the civilian size of the DoD has exploded over the last 20 years. And so where there are room for efficiencies, we are actively trying to find them and right-size those spots, because a lot of those places are not making us more nimble or faster at what we do. And
what do we say to
about the people, but it's the numbers.
Right. What do we say to the people that have strived in their entire life? These are former retired members of the military working as civilians back home. What do we say to them?
Well, almost all of them took a voluntary DRP to separate.
Do you have a timeline for making these cuts?
Like I said, almost all of them were volunteers who themselves decided to retire early.
Okay, I want to reset for just a moment. And I'm going to be honest with you. I learned a lot about military service from both of my grandpas who served and fought in World War II. My grandpa Sorensen was a proud Navy photographer. I have his photos, they're framed above my desk here on Capitol Hill. I learned to be proud of him. And from him, I learned how to become proud of veterans, which is why I want to talk about a different veteran, one who served in the Korean War from 1951 to 55. He served courageously like my grandpa Sorensen. But unlike my grandpa, this veteran was forced to resign from the Navy. I'm talking about Harvey Milk, because he was gay. You see, as a kid, all I wanted to be was the weatherman on TV. I learned that I could have gone into the Army or the Navy to learn meteorology, but someone like me wasn't allowed. They didn't want someone like me, Mr. Secretary. There wasn't anything that I could do to change myself or the way that my nation thought of me. And so I want to keep this very simple. Do you believe that Harvey Milk is a veteran who deserves his country's thanks?
Sir, the decision to rename the ship was...
I'm just asking, do you believe that Harvey Milk is a veteran who deserves his country's thanks? Yes or no?
If his service was deemed honorable, yes.
Yesterday, the Secretary of the Navy was in your seat. He couldn't give me a straight answer. I disagree with your leadership and his, because I believe that every veteran deserves our thanks. We all walk in the footsteps of leaders before us. And you may not find the value in the fact that many of those people are women with different skin colors, different backgrounds, different talents, immigrants, gay, straight, transgender, disabled. You may want to change it. but you can't. Because the America that you and I both serve is a place where everyone has the ability, or should have the ability, to grow up and be the hero their grandpa was. I wanted to do that when I was a kid. We're going back to that time. Gay kids like me, they don't want to go into the Army. They don't want to go into the Navy because you don't care for them. It's happening all over our country. My grandpa taught me never to judge the value of a veteran's service. And I hope, Mr. Secretary, you learn to do the same in your capacity, and you can find it in your heart to make that part of your process. May God continue to watch over our troops, our veterans, and our military families. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair.
The exchange began calmly. Congressman Sorensen, a freshman lawmaker and former television meteorologist, opened by asking whether bipartisanship still matters in the mission of the United States Armed Forces. Secretary Hegseth agreed that bipartisanship can be valuable, setting what initially sounded like common ground. But Sorensen quickly made clear that this hearing was not just about numbers on a spreadsheet or bureaucratic efficiency. He described conversations with constituents who feel overwhelmed by misinformation, distrustful of institutions, and unsure of what to believe anymore. That sense of confusion, he said, makes leadership and moral clarity even more important. The discussion then shifted briefly to the Department of Defense's plans to reduce civilian personnel. Hegseth explained that the department has pursued voluntary early retirement programs, estimating reductions of roughly 8 to 10% in some areas. Sorensen pressed on what that means for longtime civilian employees, many of them retired service members who continued serving their country in non-uniformed roles. The answers were technical, cautious, and procedural. Then Sorensen deliberately changed the tone. He paused and spoke about his grandfathers, both World War II veterans. One of them served as a Navy photographer, and Sorensen said the photographs his grandfather took still hang framed above his desk on Capitol Hill. From them, he said, he learned pride in service and respect for veterans. That personal story set the stage for the name that followed, Harvey Milk. Milk served in the United States Navy during the Korean War era from 1951 to 1955. His service record was honorable, but like thousands of gay service members of his time, Milk was forced out of the military because of his sexual orientation. Years later, he would become one of the first openly gay elected officials in American history, serving on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors before his assassination in 1978. Sorensen explained that as a young man who dreamed of becoming a meteorologist, he once looked into military paths that could have led him there. But for people like him, openly gay Americans at the time, those doors were closed. There was nothing he could have done to change who he was or how the country viewed him. Then came the question. Do you believe that Harvey Milk is a veteran who deserves his country's thanks? Secretary Hegseth did not say yes outright. Instead, he conditioned his response, saying that if Milk's service was deemed honorable, then yes. That caveat immediately drew a reaction. Sorensen pointed out that the Secretary of the Navy had sat in the same chair the day before and also failed to give a clear answer. He said plainly that he disagreed with that leadership approach. In Sorensen's view, every veteran who served honorably deserves gratitude, regardless of who they were, how they looked, or whom they loved. He went further, arguing that today's military stands on the shoulders of people from every background: women, immigrants, people of color, disabled Americans, gay, straight, and transgender service members. That diversity, he said, is not something that can simply be erased or rewritten. Sorensen warned that young people are watching. Gay kids across the country, he said, are once again questioning whether the military wants them at all. And that hesitation, he argued, is not just a cultural issue, it is a readiness issue for the future force. His closing words were not accusatory so much as deeply personal. He said his grandfather taught him never to judge the value of a veteran's service, and he urged the Secretary of Defense to take that lesson to heart. As the room fell quiet, Sorensen yielded back his time, ending one of the most emotionally charged moments of the hearing. Moments like this matter because they reveal how policy debates are never just abstract. They shape who feels welcome to serve, who feels erased by history, and how a nation chooses to remember those who wore its uniform. If you found this breakdown helpful and want more context-driven reporting that goes beyond the sound bites, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. We will continue to follow how these debates play out, not just in committee rooms, but in the lives of service members and veterans across the country.